the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, the Registrar, University Librarian, Provost College of Medicine, Dean, Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, Deans of other faculties, the Postgraduate School and of Students, Directors of Institutes and Centers, Heads of Departments, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The 416th in the series of University of Ibadan Inaugural Lectures will be delivered this evening by Professor Arinola, Head Department of Chemical Pathology, on behalf of the Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences. Born on 10th December 1964 to the family of Alhaji and Mrs. Raji Arinola of 7/313, Badas Compound, Odiaje, Ibadan, both now of blessed memory. Professor Olatunbo Sunganiju Arinola had his elementary education at St. Peter's Anglican Primary School, Aremo, Ibadan, from 1971 to 1975, and his secondary school education at Lagilu Grammar School, Agugu, Ibadan, from 1975 till 1980. He later gained admission to the University of Port Harcourt for a BSc Zoology degree the same year. He graduated in year 1984. He participated in the National Youth Service Corps scheme as a teacher at Iroko Grammar School, Iroko, Oyo State, from 1984 to 1985, and was there till 1987. From 1986 till 1987, Ganiju Arinola registered for and obtained the MSc Cellular Parasitology degree in the Department of Chemical Pathology of this university. He taught at the Women Teacher Training College between 1988 and 1990, when he joined the Ladoke Akintola University of Ogumosho and remained there till 31st January 1998. He registered for his PhD program in chemical pathology with a specialization in immunology in 1992, and he completed this program in 1998. He had further training in immunology at the World Health Organization Center for Immunology, Vaccinology and Biotechnology, University of Lausanne, Switzerland, from between 30th October 1999 and 30th April 2000. He later joined the Department of Chemical Pathology, Immunology Unit of this university as a lecturer grade 2 with effect from 1st February 1998. He was upgraded as lecturer grade 1 with effect from 20th February the same year. He was promoted as senior lecturer with effect from 1st October 2001. 3 years later, he was promoted reader, and 3 years later, he was promoted to the ultimate accolade of Professor of Chemical Pathology with effect from 1st October 2007. He was appointed honorary consultant and later redesignated as specialist advisor to University College Hospital, Ibadan, with effect from 15th September 2006. A prolific scholar, Professor Arinola has over 185 academic publications in both local and international outlets, 10 of which are chapters in 2 books, so we can as well refer to him as a journalist. He has supervised and co-supervised and is still supervising several postgraduate works, including PhD, MD thesis, MPhil and MSc dissertations in immunology, as well as undergraduate BSc research projects in related sciences. Some of his mentees are now professors, readers and senior academic staff, and holders of respected positions in universities and other establishments in Nigeria and abroad. Within this university, he has served in several capacities, including member of the Committee on Asset Sharing and Transfer of the Constituent Units of the Institute for Peace and Strategic Studies. He is a member of Senate. He had previously served as head Department of Chemical Pathology from 2005 to 2007. Departmental Coordinator of Postgraduate Programs 1998 till 2005. Representative for Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences on the College of Medicine Promotions Panel, and currently as Substantive Head, Department of Chemical Pathology. He was a recipient of several research grants, either as principal investigator or co-investigator, including Wellcome Trust Fund, Thomas Basia Foundation in 1995, University of Ibadan Senate Research Grants, individual and multidisciplinary in 1999, 2000, 2002, 2004, and 2006. University of Ibadan College of Medicine Research Grants in 2001 and 2002. University of Ibadan, MacArthur Research Grant in 2009 and 2010. African European Research Initiative in 2011. Ralph and Marion Falk Medical Trust, USA in 2012. D43 National Institute of Health, Re-Entry Grant, USA in 2014. AstraZeneca South African Research Grant Award in 2014. And Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves, USA in 2015. Professor Arinola has won a number of awards, including Departmental Best Graduating Student at the University of Port Harcourt in 1985, British Society for Immunology Scholarship Award, 2003, Federation of African Immunological Society, 2003, 2006, and 2009, European Congress of Immunologists International Travel Grant, 2009, Vaccine Research International Travel Grant, Baltimore, USA, 2007, and Global Health Travel Award in 2012 and 2014. Outside this university, he has served and is still serving as examiner at undergraduate and postgraduate examinations, member of learned and professional societies, including the Nigerian Society for Immunology and Association of Clinical Chemists of Nigeria, visiting scientist on molecular immunology, Institute of Immunology, Luxembourg, from January till March 2010, visiting scholar to University of Chicago in 2013, member of consortium that determined asthma-related genes in African Americans and Africans, a member of a group that recommended the discouragement of the use of wood kerosene stoves to the Nigerian government. Professor Arinola is happily married to Mrs. Abidemi Arinola, and the marriage is blessed with promising children. I now call on our head Department of Chemical Pathology, Professor Ganijo Arinola, to deliver his lecture titled Diplomacy of Protective Armoring in Humans, How Effective? Professor Arinola.
The Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnership, the Registrar, the Librarian, Provost, College of Medicine, Dean, Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, Dean of other faculties, Dean of Postgraduate School, Dean of Students, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin my lecture by giving glory to Almighty Allah for this opportunity to stand in this almighty chamber today, which is few months, less than 10 years after the university pronounced me as Professor of Immunology. I would like to express my sincere and special appreciation to the Dean of my faculty, Professor Uji Ademowo, for this opportunity. I also thank all academic members of staff of my faculty for the honor. This lecture gives me opportunity to share my experience over the years in academics with my colleagues and public to demonstrate bench to bedside or gown to town phenomenon. This lecture is the 416th inaugural lecture of our great university and the 6th in the Department of Chemical Pathology. The first lecture from the department was delivered by Professor D. Olatubosun from Toxicology Unit. It was followed by late Professor Babatunde Oshotimei from Endocrinology Unit, Professor Iru Agbedana from Nutrition Unit, and Professor F.A. Adiniji from Toxicology Unit. The last was delivered by Professor D.I. Aneto from Toxicology Unit in 2016. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, today's inaugural lecture is the first from Immunology Unit of the Department of Chemical Pathology, and it is titled The Diplomacy of Protective Armoring in Human, How Effective? This inaugural has been designed to show that human as a whole is a protective armory which should normally be effective. Gbogbo ara kìkì àbò. For effective understanding, this lecture will follow this sequence: armory in humans, immunology as a unified science among all sciences, my contribution to the field of immunology, concluding remarks, recommendation, and acknowledgement. Armory in humans. Some of my friends have jokingly asked me on several occasions what is immunology is. Therefore, before I proceed, it is important to remind ourselves what immunology, but not immunology is. Immunology can simply be defined as the study of the immune system. The immune system, or the armory, produces white blood cells or soldiers and other proteins or the artillery that protects the body from invading disease-causing organisms or pathogens, which are, of course, our enemies. The soldiers, such as lymphocytes, natural killer cells, monocytes, and macrophages, all play surveillance role that results in elimination of pathogens and abnormal cells from the body. The two arms of defense are innate immunity and adaptive immunity. Innate immune response. Innate immunity is inborn, protects against any intruder, and it involves barriers that prevent harmful materials from entering the body. Innate defenses act immediately and within hours of intruder's contact to the body. Innate defenses include the skin, the sweat, the stomach acid, the tears, nasal secretion, and saliva. White blood cells, such as neutrophils, macrophages, and dendritic cells, also play an important role in innate immune response. Adaptive immune response. If the intruder is so lucky to escape the innate immune cells, some other special cells of the innate system stimulate other groups of white blood cells that eventually activate the B cell to produce antibody that binds and immobilizes the intruder, thereby preventing them from causing infection. Immunology as a unifying science among all life sciences, an indication of diplomacy of armory in humans. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, based on the above preamble, it is obvious that all parts of our body are involved in immune responses. Thus, it is not wrong to say that immunology is a unifying science. For instance, the same armory in the same person is involved in the following division of immunology: exercise immunology, vaccine immunology, ocular immunology, mucosal immunology, reproductive immunology, cancer immunology, and transplantation immunology. Also, immunologists are involved in mate selection as an information. Also, they are also involved in forensic sciences, anthropology, paternity dispute. What an effective and diplomatic specialty. Exercise immunology. In response to exercise, a rapid interplay between immune cells of the peripheral lymphoid tissues and systemic circulation occurs. This depends on the intensity, duration, and mode of exercise. In general, acute exercise bouts of moderate duration are less stressful to the immune system than prolonged high-intensity bouts of exercise. Forensic science and paternity testing. Immunology provides evidence contributing to the determination of identity in criminal cases. This has been used in domestic crime trial and has been applied internationally in human rights arena. According to JNS 1973, requests for HLA typing to resolve issues of disputed paternity falls under the following categories: A, proof of adultery; B, for settlement of family dispute, usually in inheritance matters; C, investigation of sex crime like rape and incest, among others. If HLA pattern between the child and the alleged father do not match on 2 or more DNA probes, then the alleged father can be totally ruled out. If the HLA pattern between mother, child, and the alleged father match on every HLA probe, the likelihood of paternity is 99%. Immunology in mate selection. There is evidence for non-random mate choice with respect to certain genetic characteristics. This is called genetic matchmaking. The initial idea was conceptualized by Claude Wedekind through his famous sweaty T-shirt experiment. Males were asked to wear T-shirts for 2 or more consecutive nights, and then females were asked to smell the T-shirt for attractiveness. So don't be careless with your T-shirts. They discovered that females were attracted to men whose HLA are dissimilar to their own HLA. Further evidence of the importance of HLA compatibility is that couples sharing higher proportion of HLA allele tends to avoid mating, have recurrent abortion, and longer interval between successive births. Researchers, new studies for us. My story in immunology. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my story in immunology is as diplomatic as the immune system itself. I will give succinct account of my contribution in the field of immunology. What else do we expect from shun of the soil, a brown roof town where there are areas like Oje and Monoton? It may interest you to know that my interest in immunology commenced during a course then coded VMP 707 Immunology, taught by Professor G.O. Ishurosho and Dr. O.A. Rojaye of the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine through the WHO-sponsored program coordinated by Professor Makunwagu of our zoology department. My interest was further developed by my contact with late Professor Lekan Salimonu. Professor Laji Salimonu was a loving, highly versatile, dedicated academic, a professor and former head of department, a distinguished fellow of Nigerian Academy of Science, my supervisor, my mentor. Sir, Professor L.S. Salimonu, popularly called Baba Ibadan, was a religious, highly respected gentleman who passed on while in active service to this great university. May he continue to rest in peace. My research in immunology started with immune responses in school children with urinary schistosomiasis, which is called atosiaja in Yoruba. This is caused by a parasite called Schistosoma hematobium. The symptom may include blood in the urine. Some of us might have experienced this when we were younger. As at then, it was assumed to be a sign of maturity. Infected individual release the egg of S. hematobium into water via urine. Larvae hatch from this egg, infect and infect human while bathing, playing, swimming, washing, fishing, and walking through the water. Our study revealed that infection with S. hematobium parasite was common in school children, class teachers, and pregnant women, especially in rural areas. Despite the infection of SH parasite in almost all age groups, the public health importance of this disease was underestimated, and age-dependent acquired immunity of the patients was not fully investigated. Why was this so? Using elegantly designed experiments, Salimonu and Arinola established for the first time that Nigerian children with SH infection have effective neutrophil phagocytosis and adequate function of the complement system. This study explained that Nigerian children with S. hematobium parasite infection have reduced malaria parasitemia, reduced bacteremia, and apparently healthy. We, therefore, thought that these were among reasons for grouping schistosomiasis among neglected tropical diseases. The terminal spine of SH parasite caused it to be trapped in tissue, leading to schistosoma organ damage. We provided evidence that IgM-associated circulating immune complexes was involved in the pathology of S. hematobium parasite infection in Nigerian children. The epidemiology of malaria parasites coincides with that of schistosomiasis in many regions of the world. However, little is known about the immune responses of individuals with concurrent infection of schistosome with malaria parasite or with other parasites or pathogens. As shown in Table 2, one of my studies revealed that leukocyte migration was reduced while production of reactive oxygen species was raised in Trisomia patients co-infected with malaria parasites. It was concluded that SH infection protects hosts from certain blood-braiding pathogens as well as adequate neutrophil phagocytosis, thus suggesting that antigen from schistosome parasite might be explored to develop vaccine against other blood-dwelling pathogens. We were driven by the detection of SH parasite in pregnant women, especially in rural areas, to establish immune responses in these infected pregnant women. The presence of SH parasite in women may lead to female genital schistosomiasis or FGS. However, FGS is not commonly diagnosed in pregnancy due to adverse effects of surgical biopsy on developing fetus and mothers. As shown in tables 3 and 4, our study was the first, at least in this environment, to conclude that urinary schistosomiasis changed the course of humoral immune responses during pregnancy, leading to adverse pregnancy outcome. Therefore, treatment of SH infection in all age groups, particularly in rural areas, is suggested. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, as an indication of diplomacy of armory in humans, I have collaborated with colleagues in different departments within the University of Ibadan, other universities in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, especially Switzerland, Luxembourg, and the US. Immune responses during pregnancy. Successful pregnancy is of the essence. According to divine mandate, kí a máa bí sí, kí a máa rẹ̀ sí, kí a sì máa gbáyún lórí ilẹ̀. It is generally agreed that women are at greater risk of infection during pregnancy, and that various inflammatory diseases, particularly rheumatoid arthritis, improves with pregnancy as a result of immune modulation. Immune modulation during pregnancy involves changes in lymphocyte number and function of polymorphonuclear leukocytes. The results of our study, as shown in table 5, provided useful information that cell-mediated immune responses and vulnerability of pregnant women to different pathogens varies with trimester. Preeclampsia is a pregnancy-specific condition that increases maternal and infant mortality and morbidity. Recurrent abortion is defined as a history of three or more consecutive spontaneous abortion occurring prior to 22nd week of gestation. The factors that initiate preeclampsia are unknown, and recurrent abortion is still a subject of intense clinical research. In table 6, we show that preeclampsia and ectopic pregnancy exhibit opposite humoral immune responses. Immune responses in neonates. The joy of pregnancy is giving birth to healthy babies. Studies have shown that neonates are more susceptible to infection when compared with adults. However, the extent of hyporesponsiveness in newborn babies of different gestations and birth weights is poorly understood. We found that low birth babies have depressed leukocyte function but normal levels of hemolytic function of the component factors compared with full-term babies. On the other hand, preterm babies had reduced level of complement factors and abnormal complement hemolytic activities. This explains increased vulnerability of low birth weight baby and preterm babies to infections, and that gestational age and birth weight affect different aspects of immune responses. Studies on breast milk. After birth, the fundamental right of babies is breast milk. Breast milk is a complex fluid rich in nutrients and anti-infective factors for healthy physical and mental development of babies in the first few months of life. However, studies of immune responses in breast milk are scarce in Nigeria. Our study reported that levels of total protein, albumin, and immunoglobulins decreased from colostrum to transitional milk to matured milk indicating the importance of colostrum over transition and matured milk. The results of this study support exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months as recommended by WHO. The dilemma faced by HIV-positive mother is whether to breastfeed their infants in keeping with cultural norms, but in doing so, risk transmitting the virus through the breast milk, or to pursue formula feeding, which comes with its own set of risks. Our study is the first in this environment to provide answer by reporting increased breast milk level of humoral immune factors in HIV-positive mothers on ARV compared with HIV-negative mothers. Based on this, one may be tempted to conclude that mothers with HIV infection on ARV should breastfeed their babies, but this requires further consideration and careful investigation. Study on middle hair secretion. The normal middle hair mucosa appears to be devoid of any organized lymphoid follicles. However, expression of local immune responses have been observed in the middle hair epithelia during otitis media. Major gaps remain in knowledge of the content of middle hair secretion during otitis media. For the first time in this environment, it was reported that interferon gamma in the middle hair secretion could be a useful index of assessing progression of suppurative otitis media, and that allergy appears to play a role in chronic suppurative otitis media. Therefore, middle hair secretion, which we always cotton bud of, is not completely useless. Studies on autoimmune liver disease. Autoimmune liver disease are relatively rare in Nigeria, though there is evidence for existence of autoimmune diseases and serological antibody in Nigerians and indeed in Africans. In the 60s, Greenwood postulated that the rarity of autoimmune disorders among Nigerians may be due to the presence of several parasitic antigens stimulating the immune system. As shown in tables 8 and 9, our studies confirmed age-long suspicion that autoimmune liver disease is rare in Nigeria and that autoantibodies are insufficient for the diagnosis of autoimmune liver diseases in Nigerians. Sickle cell disease patients. Sickle cell disease, SCD, refers to a group of genetic disorders of red blood cell characterized by production of immunoglobulin S. One may wonder that since the shape of RBCs are defective in SCD patients and that RBCs are not cells of the immune system, why the interest in their immune responses? Our study established that raised level of C1 inhibitor, reduced level of C3 activator, and reduced activity of plasma myeloperoxidase in SCD patients might be responsible for increased susceptibility of SCD patients to P. malaria, Pasteurella malaria, and other infectious agents. Our subsequent study established that children with SCD are able to produce protective antibody response to pneumococcal conjugate vaccine at 2 months of pre-vena 13 vaccination. The study, therefore, advocated introduction of pneumococcal conjugate vaccine into normal immunization program to reduce morbidity and mortality caused by S. pneumonia. Studies on HIV. As the name suggests, HIV causes gradual and progressive depression of host immunity. Immune responses in HIV patients have been extensively studied. We added to knowledge by suggesting the involvement of inflammation, immune complexes, and polyclonal B cell activation in the pathogenesis of HIV. In a follow-up study, we concluded that C1 inhibitor and C4 have potential in the classification of HIV severity, while the levels of immunoglobulins were found not to have potentials in the prognosis and monitoring of HIV infection. Studies on pulmonary tuberculosis. Tuberculosis caused by M. tuberculosis infection remained an important cause of morbidity or mortality worldwide. Death from tuberculosis is increasing as a result of many factors, including HIV/AIDS. Unfortunately, no effective vaccines are presently available. In Table 10, we showed, as part of the first laboratory, that the killing mechanism of phagocytes is deficient in patients with TB even up till 4 months after commencement of treatment. Therefore, measures to improve intracellular killing in tuberculosis patients is advocated. Lifestyle and immunity. Work and no play makes ODO a dull boy and OGA a dull man. But our lifestyle may either be depressed or may enhance the effectiveness of protective armory. Interestingly, this area of research is still developing in Nigeria. Study on exercise. Exercise and physical activity have a generalized influence on the whole body. WHO and American Heart Association advocated a minimum of 30 minutes of physical activity for at least 5 days per week. A study reported that adults who perform a moderate amount of exercise also had better immune activity and effective heart function than others who live a sedentary life. We reported raised level of CRP and reduced level of ceruloplasmin during prolonged exercise compared with controls. Raised level of CRP has serious implications on CVD. We therefore recommend that moderate exercise should be encouraged. Kindly engage in daily exercise, even if it is gentle walk around. Excuse me, Chancellor. The study on alcohol consumers. Madam, this is not the usual. Alcohol is a very common chemical in this society and has been around for thousands of years. For some executives, most afternoons and evenings or weekends are spent relaxing or discussing over one type of alcohol beverage or the other. Professor Arinola of our department, in his inaugural lecture in 1997, canvassed that people who drink alcohol in little amounts have high level of HDL, the good cholesterol, but moderate. One of our studies indicated that alcohol consumption adversely affects certain numbers of white blood cells and humoral immune parameters. This might account for vulnerability of alcohol consumers to infection. A further study from our laboratory implicated hypomethylated as one of the bases for pathology in alcoholics. Therefore, reduce or stop alcohol consumption, or at least alcohol consumers should take immune boosting supplements. Studies in cigarette smokers. In most social circles, alcohol consumption is combined with cigarette smoking and or chewing of cola nut or bitter cola or pepper soup. There is an association between smoking and increased incidence of certain diseases and respiratory infection. Professor Arinola of our department, in his inaugural lecture of 2016, affirmed that Nigerian cigarette smokers are at high risk of CVD and cancer. He recommended that if smokers cannot quit smoking, supplement of antioxidant vitamin supplements may be used. What an excuse for cigarette smokers. Our study showed that inflammation and raised level of ceruloplasmin are common in cigarette smokers. This might explain the development of CVD in cigarette smokers. Other striking findings are that second-hand smoking and passive smoking has equal adverse effects on health as active smoking, and that cigarette smoking and alcohol consumption affect different aspects of immune responses. Double enjoyment or double wahala, you may ask. We also observed that reduced level of salivary IgA and IgM in cigarette smokers with periodontitis might be responsible for vulnerability of cigarette smokers to oral diseases. In another study, we found that raised level of IgA and ceruloplasmin have roles to play in the mechanism involved in oral cancers. Study on skin lightening cream users. The outermost skin layer provides the first line of defense against pathogens. This skin layer is removed by skin lightening creams and soaps. Lightening of skin is practiced by black people at all ages and in both sexes. The users of skin bleaching creams are usually yellower than yellow. Our study showed that skin lightening cream caused disruption of normal immunologic function, types 1 and types 4 hypersensitivity states of the skin, and alter numbers of certain immune cells in circulation. There is need for public awareness program to enlighten the populace about the danger involved in the practice of skin lightening. Studies on insecticides. Insecticides are sold in Nigeria with different names such as diclofos, snipers, DD4, or tapia. Sorry, Lasson. Our studies using animals showed that prolonged inhalation of diclofos pesticides had negative effects on immune cells as well as vital organs in the body. Thus, careful use was advocated. Further studies also revealed that the sprayer of chemicals have depressed immunity compared with farmers, as they had reduced levels of mildly parasitic activity, IgM, and skin prick responses to allergens. We therefore recommended that farm workers, especially pesticide applicators, should always put on personal protective devices. International collaboration. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I am happy to say that my collaborative study is not limited to Nigeria alone, but with eminent scientists outside Nigeria. In the early part of my career, I spent a postdoctoral fellowship here at the WHO Center for Immunology, Vaccinology, and Biotech, Lausanne, Switzerland, with Professor Jacques Louis. Our study on the effect of L major infection on pregnancy outcome of resistant C57BL mice showed increased expression of IL4 in populated lymph nodes of infected pregnant mice. This impairs the resistance of the mice to L major infection. Thus, resistant mice aborted the pregnancy in an attempt to cure infection of L major. This might be a diplomacy by the mice to stay alive, to make babies at another available opportunity. Common advice by A&P committee. Studies with Professor Muller from Luxembourg. Ticks are important disease vectors that can cause considerable economic losses by affecting animal health and productivity. The study on tick-borne pathogens used molecular techniques is fairly limited in Nigeria. Our study is the only one in Nigeria and it established the risk of infection after tick bite. The study concluded that fed ticks carry more pathogens than unfed ticks, and that cattle serve as reservoir of some of the infected pathogens. The result warranted advocacy to vaccinate ruminants against these pathogens. Other measures include removal of ticks, and concerted use of acaricides are also advised. Studies with Shola Olopade from the US. Asthma is a chronic inflammatory lung disease characterized by sudden and episodic attack of difficulties with breathing, chest tightness, wheezing, and cough. Our study was the first to show that Nigerian asthmatic patients are sensitive to a wide panel of allergens. In a follow-up study, we found that intestinal element infection may promote pro-inflammatory responses in asthmatics. The implication of this study is that while eradication of parasites may offer many public health benefits, such eradication raises the possibility of raised incidence of asthma and allergic diseases. Household air pollution. In Nigeria, about 122 million people use biomass fuel for household needs. The greatest burden of HAP in Nigeria is among women and children, as they typically assume the bulk of household cooking duties, and this can result in a multitude of health effects. However, these adverse health effects have not been studied in an integrated, scientifically rigorous manner. We found a decrease in the level of TNF-alpha in pregnant women who used ethanol stove compared with wood users. This, which could indicate reduced CVD stress and prothrombic effects from decreased HAP. Overall, we concluded that there is a potential gain in health if women are able to switch to a better fuel and stove. Thus, switching to ethanol-based stove provides much-needed hope for sustainable cooking alternative to unclean fuel in countries like Nigeria, where high-quality ethanol is already being produced locally for cooking. Immunology textbook. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I would like to add that sequel to experience gained through teaching, research, and community service over the years, the first immunology textbook, authored and edited by Nigerians, myself, Professor Dio Oyenyinka from Ilorin, Professor Dio Okavo from UNN, Professor I. Idris Mohammed from UNIMED, and edited by late Professor L. Salimon. The book was launched in 2004 and it is still in high demand from within and outside the University of Ibadan. Anticeral production. Production of monoclonal antibody, particularly anti-human IgM and IgG, started in our laboratory for the first time in Nigeria in 1996 and was put to a halt shortly after due to lack of funding. Due to high demand, the plan was to produce these immunoglobulin classes in commercial quantities to generate revenue to the university. I would like to add that till date, scientists still import this anticeral from abroad, including me. Meanwhile, in Konti and Sokoto, over in Nagbo Sokoto, it is worthy to resuscitate this reagent production in our immunology laboratory. This step will reduce cost, save life, and generate revenue. Concluding remarks and recommendation. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, it is obvious that all parts of human have protective artillery guiding us against enemy from outside. Not yet. Failure of this artillery leads to diseases of either the poor or rich, infant or old, males or female, illiterate or educated, fertile or infertile, mouth or intestine, skin or muscle, blood or bone. I therefore recommend that we must eat healthy. Excuse me. Eat healthy, live moderate lifestyle, and be adequately hygienic for us to stay alive. This is in tandem with the advice of Almighty Allah. Eat and enjoy yourself a little. Surely you are guilty. A. Many of us are not aware that all parts of our body have protective functions in one way or the other. Thus, early and continuous education of this subject will be advantage. Láti kékeré ni Mùsùlùmí ti ń kọ́ ọmọ rẹ̀ ní ẹ̀sìn. I will therefore like to recommend that basic immunology be taught from elementary school. B. You will all agree with me that immunology is central to all life sciences with many appendages. Therefore, it is imperative that such important and extensive aspects of science be allowed to grow and expand into a full department in order to fully express all its potentials. The step in this direction is at the advanced stage. It is my prayer that the ongoing immunology building and application for upgrading immunology unit to a full department be completed as soon as now. I also need your prayers and support. Immunoglobulin classes were produced before now in our unit for research and domestic purposes. These antisera are imported for use in our unit